From one measure to another, let's turn our attention now to Measure 113. That was our big story yesterday. It was about the Republican lawsuit challenging the Secretary of State's interpretation of 113. She determined that lawmakers with 10 or more unexcused absences cannot run for re-election in 2024. Now, 5 GOP senators have argued the actual language in the Constitution says they can run in 2024, but not in the following election in 2028. It's a bit confusing, but for the full explanation, check out yesterday's segment on the KGW YouTube channel. We asked for your thoughts on the lawsuit as well as how you interpreted Measure 113 when you voted yes or no back in November.
I voted yes on Measure 113, and my intent is that if anybody walks out and does not serve as they are been elected to, they should no longer be allowed to run for re-election. That was my intent in voting yes.
Seems pretty straightforward. Danny wrote to us to say, what about the will of the people? I don't care if Pat Doris has respect for the political hack DiLorenzo. We clearly passed 113 to stop the BS walkouts.
We all know exactly what we voted for. And if they do boycott on our dime, they do not get to run for re-election in the next election, not 2028. That's so absurd.
Again, pretty clear on her intent there. So while many of you agree with the Secretary of State's ruling, there are certainly some who do not. A viewer named Mike wrote in, Measure 113 should be overturned. It, in essence, threatens the minority if they speak out. Hopefully a court will agree. Full disclosure, I proudly voted no on Measure 113 and would gladly vote that way again. The minority needs every tool they can get to hold the tyrannical majority accountable.
I believe that DiLorenzo's interpretation of Measure 113 is the correct one. I don't think that any one person, including the Secretary of State, has the right to reinterpret a law passed by the voters in contradiction to what the language clearly states is now part of our Constitution.
And how about this from Martin? I voted for 113, but no doubt about it, the language of the law was messed up. What the voters intended doesn't hold water in the land of the rule of law. Both the lawyer representing Republicans John DiLorenzo and the Attorney General's office have now asked the Oregon Supreme Court to take a look at this and give an expedited answer. That means soon. We're told it could take, though, up to 6 months before we get that decision. We'll keep an eye on it for you. There's one more element to this story that we think is kind of interesting. Another viewer named Mike wrote in to us to ask, curious, who's paying for the high-powered attorney suing over Measure 113? Is it the Republicans or the taxpayers? If it's the taxpayers, I guess no good deed goes unpunished. Well, Mike, the short answer to that question is it's the Republicans, not the taxpayers, paying for the legal challenge. They created a new political action committee during the walkout earlier this year. They called it Oregon's 13 Constitutional Defense Fund. The name simply references the 13 senators, 12 Republicans and 1 independent, who represented the minority party in the Senate this past year. Because that fund is registered with the state, that means that we do have access to some of their financial records, and their latest transaction gives us the information we're looking for. On an account payable charge of nearly $63,000 to the Davis Wright Tremaine LLP law firm. And if you search John DiLorenzo's name, the lawyer representing the Republicans, there you have it. He's a partner at that very firm. It's a game of connect the financial dots. Or you can email the treasurer for the fund and ask if that money's for DiLorenzo and the 113 lawsuit, to which he responded, yes. I guess if you want to take the shortcut, you could do that. So that's another option. Oregon's 13 Constitutional Defense Fund only has $4,000 in its coffers now, so they do have quite of a deficit to make up when DiLorenzo's bill comes due. But if you donate to that political action committee anytime soon, pretty safe bet your donation will be used to help pay for this latest legal battle.